Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and I saw this news while I was traveling, so I was kind of rushing home to get it. And I think this is going to be a good, fun video while also being a little bit sad because we're going to find out that for some people, there are no lessons learned. Life is teaching you lessons, other people are giving you advice, whether it's friendly or kind of harsh, and just nothing sinks in. And then what do? You just blame the world. So, Sina Grace, who I roasted a lot, just some guy roasted a lot, Mim Headroom. We reviewed a lot of his Iceman comics. But one of the things that's bothering me is he's going to present this world that doesn't match what really happened. Yes, we roasted him, and we did make fun of him sometimes, but there was also a very sincere effort to critique his work as it was. And one of the key things I remember from me, Just Some Guy, and Mim Headroom is that we would all compliment things that he did that were good, and there were several of them. But that's all being rewritten while he kind of basically does the what that move from the last Starfighter where you just shoot in all directions. So so I got the page. Okay, so I did a little prep. Okay, so he says, by the way, please don't contact him or anyone else in this video. As Pride Month comes to a close, it's time I spoke candidly about my experience at Marvel Comics. So this is him burning bridges. And this is, evidence number 3,753 of SJWs will always turn on you. We've seen this with Chelsea Kane. We saw this, we saw this with Desiree Wilson over at, lining up a hit piece to destroy her former employer, Oni. I just did that this morning. And then we see Sina Grace, who came from mainly editing comics, and he's been in comics since basically, do you say the turn of the century? That sounds old-timey. Since like 2001. Mainly in editing, he kind of started getting into writing, and that seems to be mainly what he's doing, although it looks like he's kind of angry he's not doing it more. But let's just jump into this, because there's a lot of lies, half-truths, and just willfully being confused when not pretending to be confused would benefit you, would benefit everyone. So, as Pride Month comes to a close, it's time I spoke candidly about my experience at Marvel Comics. To date, I've always been honest about the joy of writing Iceman's journey as an out-gay superhero, but I've skirted around the challenges that came along with it. So for people who don't know, Iceman was in the first group of the X-Men and X-Men #1 in whatever, 1962. He was portrayed as straight up until about 2 years ago, although this kind of got memory hold. There was a repeated effort to make him the first openly gay X-Man in the 1990s, with both Scott Lobdell and Fabian Nicieza kind of trying and then getting pushed back and then told to stop it. So in a kind of a complicated, very, very comicsy thing, there was two groups of the original X-Men. There were the current versions who were like between 25 and 30, and then there was the original versions who were like 15, and somehow they were in the modern universe, to which I believe it was the younger Jean Grey said to the younger Bobby, you're gay, in like a really obnoxious outing. You're not supposed to out people. People are supposed to out themselves, on purpose. But then, since his past self was gay, ipso facto, his current self is gay, which is fine. But then what happened was they never really committed to the bit. You have a character who's in comics, whose thoughts we can literally see floating above his head in a little cloud. And for 50 plus years, he was straight. No hint of being gay or bisexual. Suddenly he was gay, not bisexual, which could have been pulled off very easily. You could have said, yes, we've seen his thoughts, but we haven't seen 100% of his thoughts. They just left all the gay stuff out because it was the 60s, it was the 70s, it was the 80s. But he's always been bisexual, but now he's coming out to his friends. But no, they had to go for maximum virtue signal. Bisexual would have been seen as half-stepping, so you had to make him gay. Problem is that it needed to be explained. Why he was dating Opal, while he was dating other women, why he was falling in love, and all this type of things with women constantly for 50 years of publication. Suddenly, he's gay. And not just gay, but like gold star 100% gay. He was never really straight. He was just pretending. He was just going along, because I've seen him, in comics in heartbreak over a woman before. But it was just bad virtue signaling. And then, amazingly, when he's gay, he gets his own series. Not a mini-series, which he had back in the 1980s, and I think another one in the 1990s, but like a series. But of course, it's an SJW series, which becomes a mini-series, which becomes a one-shot. Sina Grace wrote all of those, and we're going to see that there was some shenanigans going on behind the scenes, but let's move on. This is partially because I prefer to give off an upbeat vibe, and there's also a fear that my truth will affect my career. With more corporations patting themselves on the back for profit-led partnerships, wherein celebrities take selfies in rainbow apparel, and with buzz that Marvel Studios is preparing to debut their first gay character in the upcoming Eternals movie, there is an urgency to blah 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 blah. I'm not going to read all of this. Basically, he's basically saying, I think what a lot of people say is the corporate back patting during Pride Month is hitting levels of obnoxiousness. All these, whatever, Pepsi and all these things. I was like, really? Where was your Pride 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Why don't you dial it way back, since you just started showing it like 2 years ago? It's very much about ego. So not trying to jump around too much. So what I was saying earlier is ICEMAN was made gay, not just bisexual, but gay in a very ham-fisted way. He was then given a series with no actual demand for a series. He then was given to a writer with not very much experience simply because the writer was gay. The writer then wrote Bobby not as he had ever been written before. Like I said, you could say he was bisexual and his gay thoughts just weren't in balloons, but he was still thinking about them. But he was not only gay, but he had a completely different personality. And this personality was awful. He was shallow. He was selfish. He was immature. He was not heroic. And he was annoying. He was horribly unfunny. He was basically Jack from Will and Grace, except for, what Jack was funny? Imagine an unfunny version of Jack. Oh, frickin' AC. I should probably edit that out, but we both know I won't. So the characterization of Iceman was infuriating. People hated him, which of course becomes ipso facto, oh, you don't like gay Iceman by the transitive figure, by the transitive whatever, that means you hate all gay people everywhere. No. We just don't like Sina Grace's version of gay Iceman because of his behavior and because of his personality. He's obnoxious, selfish, superficial, dumb, lazy. He's not a hero. The funny thing is that Sina Grace was actually quite good at writing all of the other characters. In fact, Bishop, a character who's been nerfed ridiculously, he's lost like 80 pounds of muscle. He's just this bland Gordon Goodbrother. He wrote a great Bishop. So I was saying, put him on a Bishop miniseries. So he goes, it's no surprise that I got the attention of trolls and irate fans for taking on this job. So trolls and irate fans, but nobody can have a legitimate grievance, a legitimate critique. Like I said, they're basically wanting a dual status. I want special protection, but hey, any criticism is trolling. There was already backlash around the manner in which Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, came out. That's true. And Marvel needed to smooth that landing and put a so what to the decision. I don't think that's a good decision. The thing should have been, this doesn't make sense. He is not only not bisexual, but gay. When we've seen him date women. Okay, so it's the X-Men universe. It's the Marvel universe. Say something like Xavier. Young Bobby was having a lot of problems. So Xavier, it was the olden days. So he said, okay, I'm just going to put some psychic blocks in because Bobby's already dealing with enough stuff coming out as mutant. He can't handle also coming out as gay. So we're just going to table that for later. And then Xavier never got to it. And this is causing problems. Do a superhero story. But no, they're just like, he's gay and he has a totally different personality. And if you don't like either one of those things, you're a homophobe. And we're going to publicly castigate you and, maybe get you fired, kicked out of your apartment, something. We're going to try to destroy your life because you don't like our comic. And people are like, I don't agree to this. After a point, I could almost laugh off people. So this is what he does with the hyperlinks. We got 3 hyperlinks, and this is a classic dishonest trick. What you do, and I've talked about this before, the human mind's kind of weird. You can make someone think something's happening a lot by saying it happened 3 times ever. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm subjected to so much discrimination. Oh, tell me what happened? Oh, this and this and this. And you go, oh my gosh, that's a lot of discrimination. No, this and this and this is 3 things. That's 3 things happening in your entire life by other people on a planet of 7.5 billion people. No. And then we'll get to see that these are either incredibly minor and quite old, or they're purposefully lying or doing this, so making light of my death. Oh, I wonder what that is. Oh, it's me making a Simpsons joke 2 years ago. There's a Simpsons joke where basically he's talking about, well, it would have been like Gen Xers back then. And then Bart Simpson, I believe it was Bart, makes we need another Vietnam to thin out their ranks. And then I made I ripped off that joke, the whole point of it. And then all of these liars, this is this George Kaltsudos, simply appalling. This diversity in comics YouTuber is now talking about how, quote, we need to have a world war to cleanse society of gay men, such as Marvel writer Sina Grace. Ridiculous lie. You have some people, they purposefully lie. Then you have other people, they see something that is obviously most likely untrue, but they need that as part of their narrative. Oh my gosh, diversity in comics is trying to start a world war to kill all gay people. Go say that to one of your normie friends and see if you can. My buddy is really into the secret space program and bases on the moon and bases on Mars and all this kind of silly stuff. And he's into it. But whenever he starts explaining it, he starts laughing. I go, why are you laughing? He goes, I realize how stupid it is when I say it out loud. It's a lot easier to believe it when you're just reading it. So all this hand wringing. Oh, he said he was going to blow up the moon and then Earth and then the sun because he doesn't like the gays. And then somebody basically is like, yeah, I went and found the quote and it's not what, he said. So then the other ones, he's like, saying they have cancerous AIDS from my book or insinuating I'm capable of sexual assault. So then we see, where did he get that from? So it's a Google Drive. Tweets from 2 years ago. Tweets captured very early in the morning, 5:23 and 5:30 a.m. So what this looks like is not that he was subjected to a massive wave of discrimination, but that he actually looked for things to give him that privileged status, person of privilege, claiming to be marginalized, but actually having a privileged position. So, you get 3 things and you save them in a Google Drive for 3 years, 2 years. And that's how you kind of use, to get jobs, save your job. So between ICEMAN's, going on to read Sina Grace's stuff, between ICEMAN's cancellation and its subsequent revival, Marvel reached out and said they noticed threatening behavior on my Twitter account. So this is where you would put threatening behavior. Threat, not something rude, not a Simpsons joke that you're purposefully misconstruing, but a threat. If Marvel noticed threatening behavior, this is where you put a screenshot of it. This is where you put the hyperlink, but it doesn't exist. Only after asking me to send proof of all the nasty shit popping up online. Well, that's just being online. An editor called, these conversations always happen over the phone. What? Okay, not to be weird, but I was just on his Twitter 5 minutes ago. He says he's in Los Angeles. These conversations always happen over the phone. Oh, is he saying I can't, drop dimes and show a screenshot because it was over the phone. Okay, I get it. Offering to provide tips and tricks to deal with the cyberbullying. I don't know if you've really proved you were cyberbullied. What you've done is purposely misconstrue a joke, literally a Simpsons joke, and then basically show that two people on a planet of 7.5 billion were rude. That's it. I lost my train. I cut him off. Wait, why did you cut him off? He's trying to help you. He's giving advice. He's taking time out of the day to basically be like a dad to you. All he was going to do was tell me how to fend for myself. Well, you're a man? You're a man. You can handle this. He was being nice, too. I needed Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls that I was more than a diversity hire. Oh, my gosh. Let's read that again. I needed Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls that I was more than a diversity hire. You should get hired based on potential. You should be retained based on sales. So he doesn't say, I earned my place on ICEMAN. It was a successful, profitable book, and I really deserve to get more books. No, he says, I'm pushing 40. I need my editor to be my daddy, and you need to give me more work to prove to two guys who did tweets 2 years ago something ipso facto something. To prove that I'm not a diversity hire, give me jobs based on my status as a supposedly marginalized person. What? What? Which would prove you're a diversity hire. So then the editor said, we'll keep you in mind. I got so tired of that sentence. Even after a year of the new editor-in-chief saying I was talented and needed to be on a book that wasn't, quote, the gay character. That's true. We've seen this, weirdly enough, with a lot of so-called SJW writers. David, I'm blanking on his name. Something. He's working with Bendis on Naomi. I noticed when he would write, he's black, he writes black characters. And whenever he does it, like they're horribly written. But he writes every other race pretty darn well. We saw this with we saw this with Sina Grace. He was great at writing basically everyone except for ICEMAN, and ICEMAN was a clown that basically you couldn't respect. Very, very strange. Absolutely, Sina Grace would have been great on a Bishop miniseries or a Storm miniseries. It didn't happen for whatever reason, so now he's turning on them like a cur dog. They gave him 3 chances at bat. He was never able to produce any sales. And then he says, to prove I'm not a diversity hire, give me more work based on my identity status, which would prove you were a diversity hire. The only assignment I got outside of ICEMAN was 6 pages along about a version of Wolverine where he had diamond claws. Fabulous, yes. Heterosexual, yes. Still kind of the gay character, though. We as creators are strongly encouraged to build a platform on social media and use it to promote work for hire projects owned by massive corporations. But when the going gets tough, these dudes get going really quick. No. You said you were being cyberbullied. You provided some evidence, which is basically like 2 people being rude and you purposefully misconstruing a Simpsons joke I told 2 years ago. Then they basically said, hey, here's some advice on dealing with this. And they're like, no, daddy, you need to go beat up their daddies. Like, what? By the way, you got 3 swings at bat on ICEMAN. Believe in the work. You may be asking if my ICEMAN book was any good. It wasn't. I wasn't asking that. It wasn't. I don't think, no. Isn't, yeah. Or if I'm just being sour grapes over a bad work experience. I'm not asking that either because that's, yeah. Your book was not good and this is sour grapes. Believe me, I asked that too. From the get-go, my first editor asserted that ICEMAN would be DOA if it were, quote, too gay, while also telling me to prepare for a cancellation anyway, given that most solo X-Men titles don't last beyond a year. Never mind that my work on ICEMAN had gotten positive press in the New York Times, or that in spite of since-deleted critical sandbagging, the series nets glowing reviews on Amazon. Marvel still treated me as someone to be contained and the book as something to be nervous about. No, there was a ton of publicity, not only when it was first launched and then canceled for low sales, when it was brought back, even though it had low sales, and then they even did a one-shot to finish up the story, quote unquote. So Marvel gave you 3 more chances than they give most people, and you weren't able to put asses in seats. You weren't able to sell tickets. You weren't able to make money for them. So they showed you the door. Do you know how hard it is to not argue with a publicist when he's explaining the value of announcing ICEMAN's revival via the Marvel homepage? Sis, that's a burial. Okay, I'm just going to let that one slide. Instead of clapping back, I just went and got myself more press from the New York Times. So what he did is, again, this is Mr. I'm marginalized, but he can just, make a call and get his own glowing story in the New York Times? This is what we call shill media. This is corruption. This is bias. This is privilege. You're not marginalized, Sina. You can just magic up a second. Look at this. This one, and again, it has nothing to do with the quality of story. The Iceman Cometh Out by Stephanie Burt, February of 2018. Iceman came out. Now he's coming back in his own series, again, for the second time. George Jean Justine. So this is shill media connections. This is your privilege. But the thing is, it doesn't sell books. You need to take a character that pretty much everyone likes, Iceman, and you need to make him a hero, an exciting action hero. And yes, it is possible to make him bisexual. All you would have to say is that he didn't like to talk about it. He didn't like to think about it, so he kind of suppressed it. Or you can do some mutant or magic, or it's comic books. You could do anything. You don't just say, yeah, he's gay and he has a totally different personality. If you don't like it, you're a bigot. Yeah, and I'll get the New York Times to say it because I'm connected to the media elites. So he got himself more press. From there, they tightened my leash. I had to get all opportunities pre-approved and all interviews pre-reviewed. This would be fine if it was the standard, but I assure you, none of my straight male colleagues seek permission to go on podcasts promoting their books. Well, what happened is you worked your media connections, and a corporation was basically, it's very, very strange to cancel something for low sales and then bring it back literally 4 months later. What happened is you got that New York Times interview, and Marvel was basically emotionally blackmailed into bringing the book back. Oh, why'd you cancel America Chavez and Iceman? Those both had gay leads. Why are you canceling all your books with gay leads? Well, because they don't sell anything. They sell terribly low, really bad sales. And so they kind of wanted to be like, hey, we tried it and just move on. But no, they had to bring back it a second time. And what happened? Cancel for low sales again. So you just basically wasted their time. And they could have been putting another crew on another book that actually might have caught on with the public. So you just basically wasted their time. Now watch this. See right here where he says, I needed Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls that I was more than a diversity hire. Give me more jobs because of my identity as a gay man to prove I'm not a diversity hire. Yeesh. Then watch this. This is him. What Marvel should have done is assign me a special projects editor. They should have worked with a specialty PR firm rather than repeat a tiresome cycle of treating the book like a square peg and getting confused when it's a hit. Okay, no, it was never a hit. He alludes elliptically to it selling like gangbusters on Amazon while not being able to say what the numbers are. The numbers with Amazon, with all the subcategories, you can be number one easily. I've had multiple books be number one for a week or two. I had a book on New York Times bestseller list. I mean, it was an anthology. I was on there, back before they changed everything. Tangible sales, measurable sales, quantifiable sales were all low. Don't tell me your book was a hit. If your book was a hit, They would be coming to you. You wouldn't be having to work your media elite privileged connections to get coverage, glowing puff piece coverage in the New York Times. Give us a real seat at the table. Who is us? Who is us? Is the us you're talking about talented writers? Is the us you're talking about people who maybe they're not so talented, but they're great with the fans? They can sell anything. Or is more likely the us gay people for being gay? There was a moment before Iceman was canceled. Which time? The first time as a, or the second time or the third time? Be more specific. You're a writer, allegedly. There was a moment before Iceman was canceled where I wrote then editor-in-chief Axel Alonso an email pleading for a Hail Mary arc. I explained that Iceman was landing with a new generation of readers who focused more on binge reading than month-to-month periodicals. The series needed time in the book market before its true strength could be assessed. To Axel's credit, he was warm to the idea and even gave me an extra month. Not that warm. But when he left Marvel, that idea got brushed away. Of course I was right. Of course you are, dear heart. The whole world's wrong, and you're right. The magical sales that you can't prove were incredible. The quantifiable sales we can see are just alt-right fake news dog whistles. It's all about you. It's your world. We're just living in it. What did he say? Of course I was right. The first 2 volumes sold like gangbusters, thanks to word of mouth, librarian love, and support from retailers big and small. This is where you would put evidence. You can keep salty tweets from 2 years ago. This is where you put a hyperlink to prove gangbusters is not a number. It needs to either be a number that's really impressive, 100,000, hell, 50,000. And it needs to be in comparison. Compared to the other Marvel books, it was in the top 20. Compared to all the books out that month, it was in the top 50. Don't just say, it's not that night. It's selling like gangbusters. Okay, it's not 1943. Give us some numbers. You have no problem inserting hyperlinks. Put some hyperlinks here. When the series returned, no one at Marvel asked me, what do you think landed with readers? Nor did they ask the question that Axel did, what matters to your community? What community are you talking about? Comic book readers? Comic book readers with money? Comic book readers who like Iceman? Or is your community being gay? If you want to have a specialty comic that's just made by gay people and just for gay people, it's completely out there to do it. But the market is so small, just in general, just catching everyone. There's not enough. So it just comes back to, everything comes back to, I'm Sina Grace, I'm gay, I'm Sina Grace. Where are the sales? Provable sales. Seat at the Table Part 2, the shade of it all. All of the weird drama I put up with crystallized when I created a drag queen mutant, first called Shade, now called Darkveil. Shade is probably because DC's got Shade the Changing Man, Shade the Changing Woman. I told my editor that Shade would be a big deal for X fans. That's not how it works. You just throw out whatever is out there and then the fans decide if it's a big deal. And asked how we should promote her. He said, leave it up to the reader's interpretation. That's true. I saw this right when I got into comics. The main thing with Marvel Comics. It was 1988. It was the summer of Speedball. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man, with his new teen hero. And oh my gosh, Marvel pushed it so hard and it was trash. And it just flopped. You can't make something a hit. It either is a hit or it isn't. I think Darkveil Shade was a solid line drive. I thought she was a fun character. People generally liked it, but it wasn't that original. It was, have you ever watched any show on TV with a drag queen? You know that kind of default personality they all adhere to? It was basically that. Sassy, campy, the whole deal. So it was an okay character, but it wasn't anything that big of a deal. Everyone at Marvel shrugged off 2 years of goodwill. Isn't Goodwill a charity? This is all just charity, right? How about 2 years? They would not shrug off 2 years of high sales, record-breaking sales, or just dependable, solid sales. 2 years of goodwill, what the hell is that? And acted like I'd coordinated behind their backs on an announcement that made headlines. Okay, so there was Okay, so you were already told to coordinate any kind of press, and then you didn't coordinate press for your pretty basic drag queen character. Um, Beyond mentioning on Instagram the queens who inspired the character, I didn't coordinate shit. But yeah, you did. Of course, their head publicist can't admit that my quotes were pre-approved from an unreleased interview. At this point, and that's kind of a petty gripe, I stopped believing. Again, you hire SJWs, you give Chelsea Kane a #1 for Mockingbird. You give Sina Grace 3 #1s for ICEMAN. You give Desiree. They're always going to betray you. They're always going to stab you in the back. There is no loyalty. And why should there be? Sina Grace knows he was hired for being gay. He knows he was not hired on merit. Although he actually does have promise. If he would just have an actual someone say, hey Sina, stop. Stop with the cliche, campy stuff. Write heroes. Write heroes. Cool, tough, admirable heroes. Exciting adventures. Write that. And you can do whatever you want in your private life, on your Twitter, within reason. Don't start doing your own marketing and publicity, because we got that. But stop. No. Then he just starts doing like petty gripes about like old jobs in retail. I recognize that some of my complaints can be filed under "This is freelance life." I am aware that it was not a queer person of color who joked to me that it's not a matter if Marvel fucks you over, it's a matter of when. That came from a cis white male. The same day turnarounds without warning, the work emails on Christmas week. What? You're not supposed to get emails the entire... What is this level of privilege these people work under? Don't send me any emails the entire week of Christmas. That's right. December 19th, don't even think about it. Don't even write a draft and not send it. No work. If you're taking vacation, tell them. Truly, I don't even think of this as discrimination. I call it general ineptness. It is my belief that if we are telling stories about heroes doing the right thing in the face of adversity, wouldn't the hope be to embody these ideals as individuals? Well, then do it yourself. Step up. People are investing money in you. You have, I would say, I don't know if a moral responsibility. You have some kind of responsibility to say, hey, they've given me a highly publicized #1. I should write something that's going to recoup their investment. But no. You always I'm just going to write him as me because I'm like amazing. And then when you get canceled for low sales, you really don't learn anything. You just write it again. Instead of feeling like I work with some of the most inspiring and brave people in comics, I was surrounded by cowards. It sounded like they actually tried to help you. They gave you more swings at bat than anyone else. Truly, I hate writing this. In keeping with Pride Month, I am proud of the work I did on Iceman. I love the book. What? Why? This is where you'd explain why, and not just, you're gay, Iceman's gay. What were about the storylines? You had like 17 issues between 3 different #1s and miniseries, one shot. What are you proud of? It sucks that I may be tarnishing its legacy going public about how the cookies were made. That said, the time for self-congratulating is over. Oh, you're an SJW. That time will never be over for you. You just did it 2 sentences ago. And folks should be earnestly listening when they ask, what could we have done better? I got my consumer hat on. I did everything correctly. I paid for your book. I read it. And I waited for you to get better over like 2 years. And you just got a little bit better. Now it's like another year later and you've learned nothing. So it's not about us, Sina. It's about you. Stop demonizing all criticism. Stop hoarding these little, 2 years ago someone said something rude on Twitter. That's so weird that you keep a Google file of screenshots for years. Someone said something mean, rude 2 years ago. Try to learn from your mistakes. If something underperforms or fails, figure out what you did to make that happen, and then don't do that. Ask around. I had Iron Sights come out, and then I had Jawbreakers Lost Souls, and everyone said, You're really bad at scene transitions. Your scenes just kind of end and they jump into the next scene. So I talk to people. I'm trying to work on that. Just like logistical stuff with the shipping, with the print file. Listen to people. Stop demonizing all criticism as bigotry, and realize your extreme privilege. 3 swings at bat on Iceman. You had 2 puff pieces in the New York Times, and you failed. You're the one who failed. You have the ability to write a good series, but you just wanted to just basically pat yourself on the back. It was all about ego, and you failed. And you have no one to blame but yourself. So here's some of his art. I'm just going through this because I actually think he's a good artist. So I believe he designed Shade, and he was proud of it. That's cool. Shade, like I said, Shade was not like the biggest deal character ever, but it was a fun character. It was introduced very like naturally. There was an event at there was like a Pride Mutant Pride festival, and then Shade, who's a drag queen, was being the MC. Classic. It was just a good way, and then she popped up, I believe, in the next issue, just a little scene, and it was a real good introduction to a character. So you see, it's kind of like I don't know what you call this style. I thought that was a fun costume. I believe he designed it. Some of his other art. See if there's any good stuff. I think he's a good artist. Nice drawing of Death. This is him developing the Shade character. I guess that's about it. I think this is a very, very early designs. This is how she was introduced in the book. And it worked. It worked just fine. But yeah. So 2 years have gone by and you learned nothing. All you've done is burn bridges and just insist that, what does he say? I was right the whole time. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. Thanks to everyone giving to the GoFundMe and the Indiegogo. I believe most of y'all backers in the continental United States should have it by tomorrow or Monday. And I'll have some new comic reviews up tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.